what they did was make sure that the DNA of the new human was operating on relatively low frequencies, because the cutting edge of science, the Russian scientists have done a lot of great work on this, is that they know that DNA is a receiver transmitter of information. It's what it's doing. It's a big part of what we're interacting with and what we're not. And so the idea is to keep that in a low state. So we could basically only interact with a very small amount of reality and perceive it. This is why, if you look at the electromagnetic spectrum, the simulation, it's reckoned to be like 0.005% of actually what exists. And visible light, which is the only frequency band that we can see through the decoding system of the body, is a smear of the 0.005%. People think when they look out of their eyes, or they think they're looking out of their eyes, that they can see everything in the space they're looking at. They can only see a tiny band of frequency, like one television station within the vastness of television stations. And I've said for a long time, I don't think that this ridiculously narrow band of frequency that we can see is an accident. It's there to keep us in ignorance. And then what they did was create another bloodline network, which had a much greater infusion of reptilian genetics. The human body had an infusion of reptilian genetics. That's where the reptilian brain comes from. But these other bloodlines had a big infusion of reptilian genetics and a different DNA frequency transmitter receiver system. So they can see things deeper into the field than humans can in a normal state. And so they had then to preserve this particular code, and it's a hybrid code, part human, massive infusion of reptilian. It's basically a hybrid of the two. And so we have had throughout this period this incessant interbreeding, what we call royalty and aristocracy, the blue bloods, all over the world. And these blue bloods were perceived to be royalty, special. Why? Because they were different, not special, different, because of this infusion. And this infusion bloodline was designed to rule humanity on behalf of the reptilian gods. And so for a long, long time, they did it openly through royalty and aristocracy. Then there came a point where humanity grew up enough to start to reject overt control by royal bloodline, though we still have it ludicrously in Britain. And then at that point, this bloodline started moving out of overt royalty and aristocracy and into the dark suit professions of politics and banking and business and all this stuff. And but they've gone on into breeding ever since. You know, you have the Eastern establishment families of the United States. They obsessively interbreed, just like royalty, because they're trying to hold this code that gives them these extra abilities. Because if they started interbreeding with the mass of humanity, those codes would be very quickly diluted. So this is where all this comes from. And so when you're looking at your Gateses and your Swabs and even deeper in, because they're all gophers even at that level, you're looking at these hybrids, which are described in the Bible as the Nephilim. Mm-hmm. It's described in the Bible in terms, this infusion of reptilian genetics, as the sons of God, which in the original, before the translation, says sons of the gods, interbred with the daughters of men, creating this Nephilim. And this Nephilim, in effect, is running the world today. But it's done it by appearing to be human, like the rest of the human population. And the analogy of what's happening and what has happened was given to us by the Avatar movie, where the American military arrive on this moon, this Pandora moon, and they want to infiltrate the society of these Na'vi, these blue people, as they were portrayed in the Avatar movie. But they know that if they start to try to, and these American military coming to the Na'vi society, see reptilians coming to human society, they knew that they couldn't infiltrate Na'vi society because it would be obvious what they were doing because they look so bloody different. So what they did is they took an outer shell, the avatar of the Na'vi body form, and they infiltrated their society while the Na'vi thought they were just one of them. That is precisely what has happened in the infiltration of human society by this reptilian force. And they end up in the positions of power and the positions of hire and fire. And how it's happened is they have been expanding their reach over, in our version of time, thousands of years, out of places like Babylon and Sumer and Egypt and up into the Roman Empire and then up into the British Empire. And at that point, when the British Empire was at its height and all the other European empires were colonizing the world, this was the point when this reptilian human cult went global. They took over the world through colonial imposition. And then when it appeared that the colonies were given their freedom, that's not what happened. They were swapping over control, which has a finite life because the population at least knows who's controlling them, and at some point they'll rebel, for covert control. They left out in those countries the bloodlines, the networks, the secret society networks, and they've gone on controlling those countries ever since. And they went global. They went global in their control with colonization. And then through the additional follow-up decades of globalization, they have centralized power, decision-making on a global level in every area of our lives. And now they were in a position at the start of the COVID era to play their end game. But they're still stuck with a big problem. And that is that the target population is numbered in billions, and they are numbered in, by comparison, in tiny numbers. So the only way that you can, as that few, control the many is controlling the perceptions of the many, thus the behavior of the many. And what this has done is show them who still has a mind of their own and who still won't be intimidated into submission, and those that will. And that's why they're targeting us in that group on the scale that they are, and trying to break our spirit. Will become so marginalized and broken of spirit that there's nothing that we will do to bring this to an end. But there is, and we are.